And so I'll post a link to this short article that talks about somebody who is involved with a salsa team, right? And because of their salsa team, they feel like they can't leave Facebook because it's the tool that everyone on the team uses to communicate with each other. So this idea of convenience then is often used to sell and market new technologies because they are supposed to make our lives better. So the manufacturers draw on this myth of convenience in order to entice us to buying more technological products. One area where Slack and Wise note that this has been really prevalent is with household technologies. Household technologies are typically marketed as labor-saving devices. And Slack and Wise discuss some of the history, which I encourage you to read, about how, as industrialization took place, men went into the formal workforce, right, while women were left to do housework. So men were essentially eliminated from housework by the rise of modern capitalism. And what then happened is new technologies, and we see this especially if we look at sort of the domestic culture of the 1950s, right? New technologies are then sold primarily to women as a way to promise easier lives for women who are left to manage the domestic sphere, manage the home by themselves. So those technological systems tend to assume, Slack and Wise argue, the operation by a full-time housewife. So even though they're supposed to, make women's lives easier, really, what Slack and Wise point to is the way that they create new demands, right? Because there are now new standards that households are supposed to meet as new technologies supposedly make housework more convenient. And we see this even to this day, and where these technologies are marketed primarily to women and show that women really are supposed to be you know incredibly concerned about the particular conditions in their home because supposedly the technologies make it so much easier for them to manage those conditions. So we'll just take a look at a couple of these ads for uh, the Electrolux uh, washer dryer.
With the Electrolux washer and perfect steam dryer, you can remove wrinkles and wash and dry clothes in just 36 minutes. So you can be even more amazing. Nice catch. Electrolux, be even more amazing. Laundry day. A ton of laundry isn't a ton of work with my Electrolux Perfect Steam Washer and Dryer. With the largest capacity Perfect Steam Washer and Dryer, you can wash and dry more than 50 outfits in one load. So you can be even more amazing. Date night. Better yet, he can be even more amazing. Alone at last. Electrolux, be even more amazing.
So we see, right, that the household technology not only makes the task easier, but then is supposed to empower the housewife, right, in having a much better life, right, and giving her family a better life. Um, However, Slack and Wise show that these technologies more often, or the belief that these technologies are supposed to uh, allow for all of these conveniences, more often than not, lead to perpetual dissatisfaction because we never really are able to, be as efficient as we see Kelly Ripa in those ads. We never really are able to jump and dunk like the basketball players wearing the Reebok pumps. Um, that the expectation of annihilating time and space, even if we do get the hyperloop that goes from in 30 minutes from San Francisco to Los Angeles, we'll still have those 30 minutes, right, that we need to deal with, right? Why not 15? Why not 10? So there's the sense of perpetual dissatisfaction that comes from this myth of convenience. And we could see this with some of the discussion now about, as I noted earlier, smartphones and depression, right? These devices that are supposed to make our lives better, make us feel closer to our communities, make us, enable us to communicate faster, more easily, that in fact, using these devices more and more makes people feel often very alienated and has led, particularly for teens, to depression and suicide. So this myth that we can overcome the physical barriers and the barriers of time and space through technology never quite pans out. Now, if we look at the reading from Neil Postman, you have that one chapter called The Peekaboo World. And I just want to draw attention to a few points from the reading that you should keep in mind. This chapter is focusing on the rise of the telegraph. Now, as I said before, the telegraph was really the first communication technology that broke the unity between communication and transportation. So to reiterate that again, what that means is that before the telegraph was invented in the 1840s, in order to get a message somewhere, you had to physically be able to deliver that message. The telegraph then uses electricity to send that message much faster than you would be able to accomplish without, right? So there's now a break, right, which was really revolutionary between communication and transportation. So what Neil Postman says is that electricity helped Americans in the 1800s conquer the problem of space. And in the United States, that problem of space was part of the discussion that we talked about around manifest destiny and the notion of progress. This is very much related to that. In the 1800s, this was when we had the westward expansion and the settlement of the West by by Americans, by European Americans. What that then entailed was the elimination, the genocide of Native Americans, and the conquering of territory from Mexico in the 1840s, and then integrating that into the United States. All of that then is then part of this larger project, right, that's happening at that same time. It's not an accident that as transportation and communication technologies are improving, right, the United States is able to expand from coast to coast. So with that in mind and understanding how this idea of convenience, right, and what we might romantically look at as linking this vast country together, also had a really negative side to it. So the narrative of convenience tends to blind us, right, from seeing that negative side, much like the narrative of progress does. The inventor of the telegraph, Samuel Morse, prophesied that the telegraph would make one neighborhood of the whole country, right? That this was going to bridge us together. So again, annihilating time and space in order to build a stronger community, a stronger country. What Postman argues, though, is that what the telegraph actually did was it turned information into a commodity and uh, led to uh, a new relationship between communication or between discourse and action, right? All of a sudden, rather than in an oral culture or a print culture, right, we could have information kind of flying around, decontextualized, right, that we're not actually really a part of a sustained conversation around. So he sees a lot of negative consequences of this new emphasis on convenience, where the communication technology annihilates time and space. Um, in exchange, we actually, he would argue, become more alienated from each other and less engaged as a democracy. So I want you to take a look at that chapter, and that's going to comprise the bulk of your quiz, which will be due on Friday. After that, due on Monday, 1 week from today at 5 p.m., you're going to have another 500-word writing assignment. I'm going to post a video of a speech from a number of years ago given by President Obama explaining why he was committed to using drones in warfare. And in listening to that speech, I want you to identify 2 ways in which he invokes the myth of convenience. So you should draw from Slack and Wise in explaining those 2 examples. And then, drawing also from Slack and Wise, tell me what one consequence might be of living in a technological culture that privileges convenience, right? In what way might there be some negative consequences from the use of drones as justified by those myths of convenience? And so again, I want you to draw from Slack and Wise to help explain that consequence and how you see it manifest in Obama's discussion of drone warfare. So again, if you have any questions, please email me, let me know. But there will be a discussion board once again posted. Nobody made use of that, but I would encourage you to do so that you can kind of bounce around ideas and use it also to communicate with me if you have any questions or problems or things that you want to talk about. I think this will be a richer class if you do make use of some of those tools. Okay, we will be in touch, and have a great week.